my name is Mrs. Hall, and welcome to my video about rationals. Now, there are two types of rationals that we're going to talk about today. The first type are rational numbers, and the second type are rational expressions. A rational number is any number that can be written as a ratio. Do you guys see that key word in there? The key word is ratio. Rational. That can be written as a ratio. And when I say a ratio of A over B. And B cannot be equal to 0. And the reason why B cannot be equal to 0 is because if your denominator is equal to 0, it would be undefined. And then it wouldn't be a rational expression. Undefined if B is equal to 0. So that's why we don't want B to be equal to 0. So that's a rational number. When we think about rational numbers, think about fractions. 1/2, 2/3. 0.6 is also considered a rational number. It's a repeating decimal, okay? Because we can write 0 over 0.6 repeating, we can actually write that as a fraction. And if you don't trust me, get your calculators out. And type in 2 divided by 3. And when you type in 2 divided by 3, you're going to say 0.66666, and then it rounds at the end to 7 because it keeps going on and on. So 0.6 can be written as a fraction, as 2 over 3. So even decimals can be written as fractions, and they can be considered rationals, unless that decimal does not repeat or does not end. So if you have a decimal that goes 2, 4, 7, 8, and there's no pattern to it, that is not considered a rational number. An example of an irrational number would be something like the square root of 2. And that decimal is something a little wacky. It's 1.4142, and then it doesn't end. So that is not a rational number because we cannot write it as a fraction. There's no pattern to it. So those are rational numbers. Now there's certain operations that we do with rational numbers. That's adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And we're going to talk about that in our next video. So we learned about rational numbers. Now let's talk about rational expressions. A rational expression is a quotient. A quotient of two algebraic expressions. What does quotient mean? Excuse me. Quotient is just a fancy way of saying division. It's a division problem. It's also a fancy way of saying ratio. Ratio. So rational expression is still going to be a ratio, but it's going to be a ratio of expressions. It's not just going to be a simple number. So for example, 2x plus 3, that's an algebraic expression. And then 4x plus 2 is another algebraic expression. So this is considered a rational expression because it's a quotient. They're both division. They're both divided. They're written as a fraction. Okay. So another quotient could be 4 over 2x plus 6. That could be considered another rational expression. Okay. So these are the differences between a rational number and expression. Rational expression is a quotient of two algebraic expressions, so you're going to see variables and all kinds of numbers in there. That's considered a rational expression, whereas a rational number is just simply fractions, or it could be a repeating decimal or a terminating decimal. That means a decimal that ends, but it has to be a rational number. It has to be a number that can be written as a ratio if we wanted to. So even 4 can be considered a rational number because we could write it as 4 over 1. So that's considered a rational number. So these two are very alike, but they're different. This one has variables, this one doesn't. But the way we perform the operations, such as adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, are all the same. The rules that apply, sorry about that. The rules that apply to numbers that you guys learned in middle school, such as you must have common denominators to add or subtract, apply to rational expressions as well. And later on this semester, we're going to talk about how to process rational expressions. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day.